have a quorum, so here we go. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, as far as this weekend goes, you'll be the first to know. We will have an open forum on life as we experience it in Ramakrishna Holy Mother Vivekananda Vedanta. It will be an open forum on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. It'll be facilitated and led by Shailesh Pawar, the president of the board of trustees, and I'm hoping that you all will participate. It is a chance for each of you to say what the life in this tradition means to you. So I'm hoping that each of you will participate. There will be no Saturday class. There will be no Monday class, and it's likely that there will be no Tuesday class, but a bulletin will be sent about that. I'm told that it's about the recovery period from this operation on Thursday is 10 days to 2 weeks, but we'll see if we can be at least doing this. And those of you who participate in Austerity, I suggest you find another center to participate in the Austerity. I believe we'll find this out for sure and put it in this week's newsletter. I believe St. Louis streams their Austerity, which is a longer and more complicated Austerity than we do here, but lovely. So in any event, Austerity will also not be happening from here for some days. And now we're studying Holy Mother's life as presented to us in Swami Chaitanananda's book, Sri Sarada Devi, Her Divine Play. And Haima, please begin.
Sure, Brother Shankara. Namaste, everybody, and good evening. We are on page 610, from the last second paragraph. Prabodh Chandra Chattopadhyaya was the headmaster of Badanganj school and a disciple of the mother. He related this incident. Once when Shivaram was away from his home in Kamarpakur, his wife arranged their daughter Panchi's marriage with a young man after consulting with the wealthy and influential Laha family. Ramlal, Panchi's uncle, was not in favor of the marriage because the boy belonged to a low caste family. With Ramlal's permission, Prabodh and Gnanananda quietly escorted Panchi to Holy Mother in Jairambati. The mother heard the whole story. Prabodh told the mother that if this marriage did not go through, the Laha family might be upset and prevent the master's temple from being built in Kamarpukur. Then Prabodh casually remarked that it might not matter if the temple was not built in the master's birthplace. Irritated, the mother said sharply, "What do you mean? The birthplace of the master is a holy place, the most sacred spot for pilgrims. It's not proper to speak that way." Expressing his apprehension, Prabodh said, "I wonder if Shivaram's wife becomes angry about the marriage affair, would she set fire to the master's cottage?" Immediately, the mother's mood changed and she said, "That would be wonderful. It would fulfill the master's wish. He loved cremation grounds. The whole place would be a cremation ground."
Oh, me.
Saying so, the mother burst into harsh laughter. Gradually, her voice became louder and grew into a roar. This dreadful laughter continued for a few minutes. Prabodh and the others were stupefied. A little later, the mother became normal again. During World War I, the mother was in Jairambati. One day, she asked someone to read the news of the war to her. She listened for 10 minutes and learned about the massive destruction in Europe. Suddenly, her mood changed. She began to laugh, "Ho, ho, ho," in a soft voice. Then she started to laugh loudly, "Ha, ha, ha, ha." And that roar of laughter shook the cottage. Golapma and Yoginma were present. They prayed to her with folded hands. "Mother, restrain yourself." Gradually, the mother became normal again. Once there was a performance of the play.
Hold on just one moment.
Sure, brother.
If you remember, last week, the mother said that she was actually in 5 forms: Jagadatri, Lakshmi, Bagala, Saraswati, and Kali. I don't know if that's the order she said, but this was the Bagala aspect, that terrible form of the mother that could come forth in these very rare instances where she would laugh that laugh that frightened people. This incident about World War I is told in more detail in Gambirananda's biography of the mother. This Bagala aspect of the mother, oh my goodness. And Kali too, you know. Swamiji said, don't try to take the sword from mother's hand and replace it with a guitar. Dance, Shama, dance. Dance the dance of destruction. So these moments that were narrated to us just now about the mother, her mood changed, it said, and she became that Bagala. Not something that most of us would wish to witness. Any comments about that from anyone? About the mother had these various forms and expressed them variously.
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Sham.
Does that mean it is good or bad?
Dear heart, it's beyond our comprehension whether it's good or bad. The mother, if we are to believe the scriptures, is everything. She is beyond good and bad. If we were to witness one of her terrible forms, I mean, face to face, this is why Golap Ma and Yogin Ma, in the paragraph just read, said, Mother, please restrain yourself. As I said, that's narrated more dramatically and fully in Gambhirananda's biography. And the laughter went on, according to Gambhirananda's, the laughter went on for 45 minutes. And when it says it shook the cottage, it was apparently just terrifying. Her laughter was just terrifying. And finally, these companions of hers, these gopis that had come with her, Lakshmi's attendants, asked her to restrain herself because she was frightening everyone. So we decide for ourselves about good or bad based on our own intuition, on our own sensibilities. But these divine beings are beyond the gunas. They're beyond the good and bad. Speaking just for myself, I would certainly not want to be in the presence of the mother as Bhagala. I would want her to be in one of her more benign forms. Thanks for the question, Sham. Very on point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
I missed a couple of minutes. I had to do something. What triggered that laughter? Does the book say that?
Well, there were two instances that were narrated. One was when Prabodh Chattopadhyaya said that because of certain marriage ceremonies concerns, that if it didn't go forward as planned, someone might burn down the master's cottage, the cottage in which the master was born in Kamarpukur. And this triggered this change of mood in mother. She took it humorously. Of course, nothing like that could or would happen. But she took it humorously and remarked that the master loved, this would amuse the master because he loved cremation grounds. And that whole business of cremation grounds and that the terrible female spirits that are said to attend her terrible forms in those cremation grounds, that triggered an instance of this laughter. It didn't last very long, according to this. But there was another instance during World War I, while it was still in full flame, so to speak. The mother asked that the news be read to her, and the news was read about the terrible destruction and loss of life in Europe. And this again triggered this change of mood. And according to Gambhirananda's biography, the laughter went on for a long time. Mother really was in that mood of the destructive power. And finally, Yogin Ma and Golap Ma and others who asked her, "Oh, Mother, please, please, you're frightening us." And so she regained her normal mood. So those were the two instances that have just been narrated.
Just like, as you said, everybody has to take their own take on that. I would prefer to think that she laughed because she saw that everything was just projection or nothing is really happening.
Oh, that apparently was not the feeling that people had who were in the room with her, dear.
Right.
That it was not, that there is this aspect of the destructive power. I mean, in the Chandi it says, you are the great Devi as also the great Asuri. The great Devi is also the great demoness. And for Mother, according to Sri Ramakrishna, for Mother in all her forms, this is a reality. This is her sport, her play, her Leela. And certain aspects of it, as we know, are to us horrifying. Now, we can take that Advaita position that this is all a dream or a projection. And the master would not disagree with us about taking that. But if we're going to take it, we have to take it all the way, dear. We can't say, this is dream and projection, and the rest of my experience of life is not. If we're going to do it, we have to assimilate the whole business of this is Brahman's or Mother's dream. Brahman as Shakti or Brahman as Kala and Kali. If we're going to take that attitude, then we really have to take it all the way. It's not a sometime thing. It's not a partial thing. And so this is one of the reasons that I don't think the mother was seeing it from that perspective when she was laughing in this way. Because
Thank you.
she was Mahamaya herself, and she lived a life as the master gave us to understand, a life of yoga maya, union with Maya. Until she didn't, she did. Thank you, Swayam. It's always good to hear from you, and there's no reason that you shouldn't take that attitude. But as I'm saying, if you are going to take it, you cannot take it just in this kind of instance. You have to take it all the way.
Right. Thank you.
If you're going to be a Jnani, you have to be a Jnani. As they say in Trabuco, there are so many people who are armchair Advaitists. They love to think about it, they love to talk about it, but they don't live that way at all. They don't live that way at all. And of course then, as Krishna points out in the Gita, they're simply hypocrites. Are they bad and wrong? No, of course not. It's just a form of ignorance. But nevertheless, it's not a reality. It's just a dance that people do with the Advaita ideas. Anything else from anyone before we read on? Okay,
You want me to move forward, Brother Shankara?
please.
Okay. Once there was a performance of the play Dakshayagnya at Balaram's house. Holy Mother, Gaurima, Golapma, Yogimma, and many other people were there. In this story, a daughter of King Daksha, Sati, Parvati, married Shiva against her father's wishes. The king held a sacrifice and invited the gods, but did not invite Shiva and Sati, who is Parvati. The sage Narada carried the news to Shiva and Sati, who lived on Mount Kailash. Sati was upset. She went to the top of the mountain and found that her sisters were going to her father's place with their husbands. She lamented, "Ah, me, all my sisters are going, but not me." The audience was touched by Sati's grief. This scene roused the mother's memory of her divinity. She heaved a sigh and tearfully blurted out, "Ah, me, all my sisters are going, but not me." Immediately, her companions' attention fell on her, and Gaurima said, "What happened, mother? Now you can't hide your real nature anymore." Embarrassed, the mother asked her to keep quiet. During Holy Mother's early days in Jairambati, she had heard all kinds of uncharitable remarks about Ramakrishna from the villagers. They said that the master was crazy, that he walked around naked in the temple of garden of Dakshineswar, and so on. Her mother, Shyamasundari, also from time to time lamented that she had married her daughter to a madman. Hearing her husband being criticized again and again, one day Holy Mother became enraged. She told her mother, "Look, don't say that my husband is mad. I caution you. Once I gave up my body listening to the criticism of my husband." There is a little footnote for that, Brother Shankara. I will read.
Please do read it.
Sarada Devi reminded her mother, Shyamasundari, that in the past she was Sati, that means Parvati, who gave up her body when her husband Shiva was criticized by her father Daksha. The Indian custom is to say to one who is taking leave, "Come again." It is very inauspicious to say, "Go" to anybody. That's very true, Brother Shankara. We always say, "We will see you again." When people are leaving, we won't say goodbye. That's the part of our tradition. It's been like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the footnote they made it. So once I gave up my body listening to the criticism of my husband. Do you want to see that happen again? Observing her normally calm daughter's terrible form, Shyamasundari was stunned and fearful. From then on, she never criticized her son-in-law in front of her daughter. Once there was a famine in Bankura, and the Ramakrishna Mission conducted relief work there. At that time, a monk visited the mother in Jairambati and related to her the pitiable condition of the people in Bankura. After listening to the sad story, the mother waved her hand and said, "My son, by the grace of Mother Simhavahini, Jairambati village is not affected by famine." The monk replied, "Mother, I don't understand Mother Simhavahini. It is because of you this village is well protected." The mother remained silent. A devotee once asked her, "Mother, some say that you are Kali, some say you are Durga, and others say you are Jagadatri. I shall believe you if you say yourself who you are." Holy Mother replied, "Yes, my son, what those people say, I am that."
Okay, that's the end of that subsection of that chapter.
Exactly.
What does all this signify to us? If you read the scriptures, the Shakta's scriptures, the Chandi and so on, you see that the mother is and does everything. She says the same thing from her perspective that Sri Krishna says in the Gita. Now, who's who, the mother or the son? Swami Vivekananda said, Sri Krishna is but mother's shadow. It doesn't mean Sri Krishna is insignificant. It simply means that he is reflecting or showing us the mother in that form, in the form of Sri Krishna. So, in that sense, they're one and the same being. I mean, your shadow is not separate from you. You cannot escape your shadow. Wherever there's a light enough to cast a shadow, you cannot step away from that shadow. That shadow is a form of you. So the mother is and does everything. At the end of his life, Sri Ramakrishna pointed to his body and said, I see clearly now, I am doing everything. It's one of the few instances in which he says the word I. But he doesn't mean the pillowcase that was the form of Sri Ramakrishna as a human being. He went on to say on another occasion, I believe, there are two here, pointing again to his body, the mother and her worshipper. And when he said I, he was speaking as the mother. He was not speaking as a human being. Being human is being limited, even for an avatar. The being that lived within him, the beings that lived within him, live beyond limitation, exist beyond limitation, the mother and her worshipper. So that's what this means to us. The mother in all her forms, the 5 forms that she named, the fact that she was Sati or Parvati, the fact that she was Sita. I mean, these are narrated earlier incidents when she went to Jagannath. She said, oh, it's just as I left it. I believe it was Jagannath. Anyway, a place of pilgrimage. No, it was in South India. In any event. So if we take this attitude toward the mother, we can then take total refuge in her, as she says to do. When you are in distress, remember you have a mother. Call on me. This is the significance of what she's been saying. And for us, it is the significance beyond all other significances from one perspective, that of the devoted heart, that we have this refuge. Saranagata hum. I am given refuge. I am refuged. Any thoughts or comments from anyone?
So this attitude of taking refuge, is that the crutch that we can use when we are fearful of invoking the wrath of the mother, especially when we don't know inadvertently something that might be something that she wouldn't be happy with.
Dear heart, it's very hard to stir the mother's wrath. No, we take refuge in the mother as a form of surrender, as a form of self-surrender. I am not able to do this, Mother. Clearly, I am immersed in ignorance. Clearly, the ignorance is of thy creation. So I take refuge in you so that I may be awakened from my ignorance and be freed from my sense of small selfhood that leaves me feeling helpless and vulnerable. If I am one with you in self-surrender, I'm not saying this happens by a moment's thought. This is years of practice that enables us to take this attitude sincerely and fully. But first we take it as a stand we take. I am refuged by the mother. That's what she says. If I ask for this refuge, I will be given it. Whether I fully feel it or appreciate it, or am able to surrender to it entirely, it is the truth. I take that stand, even before I know it fully. We don't know it fully until, in whatever way we experience it, we experience Savikalpa Samadhi. Savikalpa Samadhi will not be the same for all of us. It'll be in tune with the way we have been worshiping and the way we have been taught to worship by the scriptures, the great teachers, and especially if you have a guru, by your guru. So we needn't worry so very much Swayam about incurring the wrath of the mother. We really have to be inauspicious and inappropriate, way over off the scale to incur that. We are forgiven before we act. This is what the saints tell us.
Thank you.
Anything else from anyone? And thank you, Swayam, for bringing that up. But we really don't need to worry so much about incurring the wrath of the mother. The refuge idea is a form of self-surrender. As Girish Ghosh did with Sri Ramakrishna, he gave him his power of attorney. He took refuge in him entirely.
Excuse me.
Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, please read on.
Next subheading is Holy Mother Speaks the Truth. Holy Mother's life was based on truth. So everything she said came true. During Durga Puja 1 year, Girish's sister came to see the mother in Udbodhan. She was extremely generous and devoted to the mother. After the puja, Holy Mother was planning to go to Varanasi, so she was busy arranging her things, moving from room to room. At last, Girish's sister said, "Mother, may I take leave now?" Absent-mindedly, the mother said, "Yes, go." The woman hurried down the stairs. As soon as she left, the mother said to herself, "What a foolish thing I have done. Did I say to her, go? Never before have I said such a thing to anybody." And alas, she never came back. I do not know why such words came out of my mouth. Girish's sister passed away that very night. Oh.
My goodness.
Mm.
When mother says go, we go. My goodness.
I think mother probably knew that, Brother Shankara. Do you think? Do you think mother probably knew automatically it can go?
Yes,
I was just thinking.
I'm sure that
She had.
that was the underlying thought behind her regret for what she had done.
Yeah.
Because when she says go, you go. You don't.
Yes.
Okay. What have I
Okay.
done? She said.
Yes. Surendranath Roy of Barisal was a doctor who had contracted tuberculosis while treating his patients. He was bedridden and throwing up blood. At last, he lost hope for his life and wrote a letter to Holy Mother, who was his guru. Mother, I have this terrible disease and I shall not live long. I have a desire to see you once more before I die. I am very sick and too weak to visit you. But if you wish, please come to Barisal and see me. Please come. Holy Mother sent him one of her photos and a bound volume of Udbodhan magazine. She wrote to him, my son, don't worry. Your disease will be cured. It is not possible for me to go such a distance. See my photo, which I'm sending to you, and read this volume of Udbodhan. There is a little footnote for that too, Brother Shankara. Let me read it.
Please do read it. Yes.
Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga was being published serially in Udbodhan at that time. That was the footnote.
Yeah, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga was Swami Saradananda's Life of the Master, which has been translated as the Great Master and then retranslated by Swami Chaitananda as Sri Ramakrishna, his divine play.
Okay. Surendra felt the mother's presence in that photo and kept it near his head. Gradually, he was cured of that disease. Wow.
Now that, in those days,
Amazing.
there was no treatment for tuberculosis. None whatsoever. I mean, there were homeopathic treatments, but there was no, and Ayurvedic treatments, but there was no allopathic medication or treatment for tuberculosis. So for him to recover was extremely rare. And of course, as it's saying, because mother said it would happen, it happened. It's said of the mother in all her forms, mother can make the possible impossible. She can make the impossible possible. And so in this case, what might have seemed impossible to the doctors, she made possible. Any comments or questions from anyone?
I think it was her divine grace that cured him. Right, Brother Shankara?
Yes.
No doubt. Divine grace.
Well, that's the truth. These divine beings, if they say something, it must come true.
Yes.
It's true, even it's said of the great swamis, the realized souls who are swamis.
That's right.
Swami Swahananda, who was head of the New Delhi Center when he was age 41. He manifested this power. Though he was Vijnananda's disciple, his heart was entirely with the mother. So when he manifested this power of whatever he said would happen, he actually asked the mother to withdraw it. That it was too much for him to be so mindful of what he said every moment, because whatever he said would come true. And it was just, he was afraid of being careless. And so it was withdrawn. Anything else from anyone? I heard this from him personally, by the way.
I definitely believe you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay.
Okay. One year, there was a terrible drought in the Jairampati area, and the crops were withering away. The farmers were helpless. So they went to Holy Mother and prayed, Mother, there is no possibility of having any crops this year. We and our children shall all die without food. Observing their agony, the mother's heart melted. She went to see the field with the farmers and was very much perturbed. She looked all around and fervently prayed to the Master. Alas, Lord, what have you done? Will these people die without food? The mother's prayer and blessing were infallible. That very night, there was a downpour. The farmers had a record harvest that year. Wow. That happens.
They had a record harvest, from drought to record harvest, all because of what? They went and prayed to the mother. Their prayer was sincere, their need was real. The necessity was met. Not just met, but over met. They had a record harvest that year. What a story.
These prayers continue, Brother Shankara, even today in villages. People still believe in prayers. And when there is a drought or some extreme conditions, overheat, and I still remember when I go home, people telling me that, they're performing these prayers.
Yes.
And they still believe in, and we still believe in that.
Yes.
Those prayers. And it works. Sometimes it works. It really.
I'll tell you a little story.
Yes, please do.
This was here in the South. There was a church that was a church of the Black population, the African American population. At that time, they were no longer slaves. They were farmers and sharecroppers. And there was a drought. And the drought went on, as this drought did in Jairampati. And so they came to the pastor and said, what can we do? Well, he said, well, normally we wouldn't pester the Lord about something like this. But since we'll all really suffer, some will die if there's no rain, then next Sunday, when we'll get everyone to come to the church, and we will pray for rain together. So they all gathered, and the minister took the podium, and he looked out among the crowd, and he said, thank you all for coming. As you know, we've all gathered to pray for rain. Before we begin, I have just one question. Where are your umbrellas? It's dark humor, but it is humor. Where are your umbrellas? We have to believe that our prayer will be answered. We have to believe, and we have to demonstrate that belief. That's what the pastor meant. We have all gathered to pray for rain. Where are your umbrellas? Because as as it says here. Mother's prayer and blessing were infallible. That very night, there was a downpour. So we can ask ourselves when we're praying for something, where is my umbrella? Any comments or questions or concerns from anyone?
We still have some time, Brother Shankara.
Yes, we do. We still have 12
At
minutes.
least 12 minutes.
Oh, please, yes. Let's
Okay.
go ahead.
Next subheading is Holy Mother's divinity is hidden. One needs to practice tremendous spiritual disciplines before one is able to recognize an avatar. So true, Brother Shankara. I agree with that. If God and the Divine Mother do not reveal their true nature, no one can understand them. One realizes God by his grace only. The Katha Upanishad says, the Atman is attained by him alone, whom it chooses.
And what did Christ say? What did Christ say? I mean, we have these words from an avatar. He said to his disciples, ye have not chosen me, I have chosen you. So this is an exact echo of what this says in the Katha Upanishad. Precise echo. The Atman. Please read that again.
Yes, the Katha Upanishad says, the Atman, actually I will read from the beginning of the paragraph, Brother Shankara. It's so
Please
profound.
do. Yes.
One needs to practice tremendous spiritual disciplines before one is able to recognize an avatar. If God and the Divine Mother do not reveal their true nature, no one can understand them. One realizes God by his grace only. The Katha Upanishad says, the Atman is attained by him alone, whom it chooses. Krishna also said in the Gita, veiled by my Maya born of the gunas, I am not revealed to all. It is true. A prophet is not honored in his own country. Hardly any villagers in Jairambati understood the divinity of Holy Mother. People from far off places came there and worshipped the mother as the Devi, whereas the villagers looked on her as their aunt or sister. One day, a village woman said to the mother, people from distant places come to see you, but why can't we recognize your true nature? The mother replied, it does not matter whether you understand me. I am your friend. That is enough.
Now, let those who have ears to hear. Until we have done enough spiritual practice to where the mother's reality is revealed in our hearts, what does she say to us? Please repeat that. The mother replied,
it does not matter whether you understand me. I am your friend. That is enough.
and it isn't just true for that village woman, it is true for us. So this is why we can take a stand for our having that relationship with the mother. Remember, Arjuna was Krishna's friend, his chum, not just his friend, his chum, his close friend. We can have that relationship with these divine beings. Remember, Arjuna, it took all 700 verses before he was able to say, all my doubts are dispelled. And this is, the divine person, himself speaking to him and dispelling his doubts. Okay.
The village watchman, Ambika Bhakti, once said to Holy Mother, people call you Devi, Bhagavati, and so on, but we don't understand those things at all. Holy Mother replied, it is not necessary for you to understand those things. You are my brother Ambika, and I am your sister Sarada.
So friend, sister,
Yes.
pretty darn close.
Thus, the mother played her divine role through both self-revelation and self-concealment. Those who were pure, simple, sincere, and devoted understood the mother's extraordinary nature to some extent. But most of the villagers of Jairambati saw her as Ramachandra Mukhopadhyay's daughter. One day she made a comment, these people cannot understand who I am.
So Swami Chaitananda presented this whole book to us so that we could do the spiritual discipline of concentrating on who she is in these revelations of all that he's told us and is going to tell us. But don't feel that you're somehow lacking or bad and wrong if you haven't yet fully realized it. Don't think that. She is your sister. She is your friend. She is, as she said, your mother. Just call on her in that way. How intimate are these relationships? Any comments or questions from anyone about this aspect?
Brother Shankara,
Yes.
I think it's, we can understand why it requires a lot of austerity before one can recognize an avatar. But with some visionary human beings too who are beyond their time, often during their time they are misunderstood, not recognized, or even punished. And then years go by, and then somebody else proves it, and then so is that some human nature that needs like concrete evidence before it can be accepted, or
We live a life in ignorance. Most people are not even aware that this is the case. When we become aware, in whatever way it happens, that there is something more that we do not know. In other words, we recognize in some way our ignorance. Then the process begins. Slowly and slowly, we find our way toward a path, a teacher, a guru, a system of practices that is congenial to us. Then we become convinced, again slowly and slowly, that we must be persistent in these practices, that we must do what is necessary for us to dispel our ignorance on a regular basis, Because as Swami Vivekananda said, education is nothing more than training of the nerves. The nerves are the place where our samskaras reside. The nerves are part of the mind stuff, the chitta. So we trade away those lower samskaras, the lower form of understanding and its accompanying ignorance, for a higher form of understanding and a higher form of ignorance. As long as we are embodied, we remain to some extent ignorant. Even if we're fully illumined, the prarabdha karma, the ignorance that brought us to this life, persists. Even for the illumined soul, as long as they remain embodied. So, we must not think that anything is wrong because we're ignorant. We must simply say to ourselves, I'm not satisfied with this ignorance and the way that it causes my life to unfold. I want to go beyond it, which is why the prayer, Oma Satoma Satkamaya, is translated the way it is, rather than simply say, lead us from error to truth, or lead us from falsehood to truth, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness to light, lead us from death to immortality. A more expansive translation is offered. Lead us from this realm of endless noise and relentless delusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. And then simply lead us from death to immortality. And as Swami Prabhupada used to regularly add to it, light us through and through with thy everlasting shining presence. But the key words to all of that are lead us, lead us. Make us one of the chosen ones who is led. Whether you translate it as the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, or the more expansive translation. The key words are lead us. That it is a prayer. It is a prayer. And we're told by those who teach us that if we persist in that prayer and others, particularly the prayer of offering ourselves and all we do, I, an embodied being, endowed with intellect, life, breath, and their functions, now offer up all I am and all I have to the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. No matter what I may have done, said, or thought, in waking, dreaming, dream or dreamless sleep, in waking, dreaming, or dreamless sleep, with my mind, my tongue, my hands, or my other members, may all that be an offering to Brahman. So it is this process of recognizing our ignorance, yearning to be free of that ignorance, and then doing what is necessary to make ourselves a part of that being led forward. And it's not a matter of merit. We all merit it simply by being who we are. It's a matter of making it a priority. Any comments or questions?
Thank you so much, Brother Shankara.
Yes, dear. Anything else from anyone? Okay, it's a little after 9. We'll start not next week,
Okay.
probably. I'm not sure whether we'll have a class next week. I mean, you'll be notified by bulletin. And look on the website, look on the Facebook page. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter. And let me remind you that this Sunday, there'll be a real joyous occasion. The congregation will gather to have an open forum on their experience of living this life within the tradition of Ramakrishna Holy Mother Vivekananda Vedanta. The gathering will be facilitated and led by the president of our board of trustees, Shailesh Pawar. He will himself lead by telling something of his own experience and why he continues to persist after all these years in being part of this. He's here with us tonight. So, anything at all from anyone? All right, dears, please do come on Sunday. There'll be a class tomorrow night. There will be no class on Saturday. There'll be, as I said, the Sunday gathering led by Shailesh. And there will be no Monday reading and discussion group. And we'll see whether we can start again this coming Tuesday or not. So we'll close with this. Om Asato Ma Satkamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Abir Moiti. Lead us, O beloved, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from this relentless noise and endless delusion to thine abode of silence, serenity, clarity, and peace. Lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Oh, lead us from darkness and ignorance to the brilliance of thy wisdom and love. Lead us from death to immortality. Light us through and through, light us through and through with thy everlasting, shining presence. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ki Jai, Durga Durga Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful, may we have peace of mind, may we go forward in the Mother's loving and protective embrace. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. So until next time, dears, tomorrow night would be the next time. For those of you who wish, we're studying Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga. Any final thought from anyone? All right, dears. Good night.
Good night.